Hello, art teacher here with you again. Today, kind of a short one on positive and negative space. Be sure to do your likes, comments, favorites, leave a comment below, all that regular YouTube stuff. And, well, I better start off by sort of defining positive and negative space. By positive space, I mean something that is in front and that you notice is, in this case, let's pull up an example. So the positive space here is this bird and the area around it being the negative space. And what I'm doing is darkening in the negative space and leaving the positive space kind of light. But there's a little more to it with this little project. So I'm also using a little overlapping here. So what I've done is made a drawing with these little birds I like. They're not that hard to make. I'll make one real quick up here. It's like, that's like a rectangle with a little angle on it. That's like a square or rectangle with a beak or, you know, a couple little triangles. I like to put the eye a little lower than you think you have to. A couple triangles on the back, then triangles here as the feathers. A couple triangles for the tail, and of course 2 triangles for the legs and 2 for the feet. That's not that hard. And then I like to make little stars to go with it, and I do the stars made out of 5 triangles with no bases. I really, in our case, this is not really the type of star we're going to use. Try to stick to that kind. You might need to practice them about 7 to 10 times. So, what I have here, I drew a border around it, about a 1-inch border around the whole picture, just on a piece of copier paper. This is with pencil, of course. Then, I drew a variety of those birds with the stars. And I have a lot of overlapping. Overlapping meaning one thing in front of the other. When I overlap, that means the lines of one thing need to stop at the edge and come out the other side. I have a whole video just on that if you're having trouble with it. Then, I want to think about how I can use the negative space to define the shapes I'm doing. But you know what I'm going to start off with? Just some light, and I don't usually like a lot of scribbling. But in this case, I'm going to start off with just some light scribbling like that. I just scribbled right on top of it a little bit there. Right over the negative space, the positive space, the overlapping, and everything. So let me catch the bottom of this with the same idea. A little bit of scribbling, and some of it even goes outside of the border. There we go. Just a little light scribbling, and you know, it's not even super attractive scribbling. And now what I'm going to do is look close and try to darken in. I kept my scribbling light, by the way. Now I'm going to try to darken in some of the negative spaces around the outside of, well, let's just take one of these larger birds and just go around the outside of that and the outside of one of the stars. So, here you can see I've been working on this guy right here, and I could even darken in real quickly here the bottom, the area right below the beak, in the area that's part of that star. There we go. Now you can really more clearly see this form. If I wanted to, I could darken in right here a little bit. And that makes it look like, it gives the beak an interesting quality also. And then I can take my eraser and pull out a little bit on the end of that beak with the eraser, I could erase some of those scribble lines. One thing I don't like to do is take my thumb and rub it like that. To me, that creates an unattractive look, but different people can differ on that. Anyway, I don't care to go like that and rub it out and get it, they call it making it smooth. There's a tool called a stump that you can use for that, and it doesn't get the oils from your hands on the paper. That might be better, but even the stump I don't care for. I figure I should be able to draw without that. Anyway, then I can go through and pick out some lines I want to darken in, some I want to leave lighter. That's line weight. I have a whole video on that. And what I'm doing is I'm using my judgment and my artistry to decide which areas should be darker and which areas should be lighter. But mostly, like I talked about before, I'm trying to use some structure. And the structure and rule that I have is the negative spaces should be darker on this assignment. So we're talking about darkening in negative spaces. That's also useful in watercolor as well. So I'm leaving the positive spaces, the things that are in front, a lot lighter, and I'm darkening in the negative spaces a lot. And then I can pick and choose some other areas to darken in a little more, and I can take my eraser and pull out some highlights or lighter areas as well. So that's what I'm working on. It's like a push and pull type method. Pushing some areas further back by darkening in the negative spaces, pulling some up closer by using the eraser on the positive spaces, the positive shapes, the ones that are in front. So as I go on and on with that, it's a process of, again, push and pull. I could look at this star here and think, well, I could lighten up that entire area. Pull out my eraser and lighten up this entire half of that star. Then, no, I want to make the wing of that bird stick out more. So I'm going to darken in just the part of it that's closer to the wing of that bird. So now it looks like the wing of the bird pops forward a little bit. I did that a lot with this star and the head of that bird. Maybe I want to pop the head of that bird off a little bit more. I can darken in around it more then, and it makes it pop off a little more. Okay? Oh, and then maybe the arms of that star, I want those to be lighter. So, take out my eraser, hit that with the eraser and lighten that up. So it's a constant push and pull. This bird over here could use quite a bit of attention. Maybe I'll darken in the bottom parts of those wings and the head, like this. That gives it an interesting folded over look. And then, using my eraser, pull out some highlights or some lighter areas and darken in around it some more. So that pops it off more. So it's a process of, first of all, making a drawing that includes a lot of overlapping and maybe some of these birds and stars. Filling this page up pretty well with that stuff, maybe having a border around it. Then, not all of it, but part of it, you can do kind of a little scribbly thing around it like this. Kind of lightly though, you're not really pushing it down too dark. Then start noticing the negative spaces, the areas behind the stars and the birds, and start hitting those with some dark pencil marks. And you're going to want to do your shading nice and evenly with that. So I'm hitting the areas around it with some dark pencil marks. And I'm going to do a little area right now and walk it right up to that camera so you can see what I'm talking about. There we go. So just quickly there, I darkened in the area around the leg of that star and the leg of this bird. And you can see I have many other areas to darken in. And I can go through and hit all those areas as well. Then I need to look at areas that are overlapped. This star is behind this bird. So I could darken in a little bit of that star right there by the bird. And then to put the bird in front, I could lighten up that tail feather. So there I go, lightening the tail feather. And I'm going to darken in that little part of the star just a little bit. And then I could lighten up another part of the star, which is further away. And then work on very dark areas around the outside of that star. So I'm doing push and pull. Pushing the negative space back by making it darker. Pulling the positive spaces forward with my eraser, just hitting it a little bit. And then right there between this feather and that star, I have a little medium tone. And then just keep working it and working it. You're going to have to apply your artistry and your judgment. And what's good about that is you're developing your sense of what you like and what you don't like. One thing also you're trying to do is, yes, there are many lines in here, but you're deciding where it will be a line and where it will be an edge. For instance, on that leg right there, this part right here is a line, but the upper part here, next to the negative dark space, that part is an edge. It's not a line. So you need to think about the difference between an edge and a line. For instance, this right here is a line. You can clearly see that that's a line. But this right here, between the body of this bird and the negative space, that's an edge. Okay, that's where the dark space comes right up next to the form. So you're going to be thinking about edges and lines. You're going to be thinking about making the negative space darker to push it back, getting out your eraser and lightening the positive spaces, and just going through that push and pull. And you could work on that for hours and it's enjoyable. Also, maybe try to use a piece of Stonehenge paper with those, but do a few practice ones on a small paper first, on one of these copy papers. Hey, hope you got something out of that. You take care now.